Good evening. Hi, so we should be live, and on a day where there seems to be an awful lot of complaining about World of Warcraft, along two lines. First of all, thank you to everyone in North America, if you're watching right now, for yet again beta testing a patch for us in Europe. There's been some fun and games, particularly with the Mythic Plus. I think there's been some criticism of a few systems that are not clear as well, not necessarily bugged, but just not clear. And then I'm quite glad in the end I was going to do the video on the Azerite armour yesterday, but I was just tired, so I didn't. I'm actually quite glad I didn't now, because just everyone seems to be doing videos on those now. So I'm leaving it alone. Hi Higpig. Hello to everyone else who's in it as well. So for those who may be new, you could make yourself known. I'm just trying to... Is that working? Yeah, it seems to be working. And what you can basically do is just ask anything you want. Anything you wish to discuss about World of Warcraft or anything moderately related. Anything goes, really. In terms of just quickly going down what seems to have happened on the NA forums, as far as I can tell, some people have ended up with really high keys, like literally getting a plus 18 key, which... probably not going to be able to do, but there's been a hot fixing for that, I think. So I think Blizzard have just tweeted, in fact I'm pretty sure they have because I just retweeted it, that if you delete the key and do another dungeon, then you get another one, but it still means you've got to do another dungeon to get your bloody key. Hi Aaron. What else has been happening? There's a world boss up, but it wasn't showing as a world quest, so you wouldn't necessarily know where it was without the help of Wowhead. What do I think they'll do to fix all the issues that are written on NA? What they always do. They'll just do what they always do. In terms of rollback, possibly. Yeah, possibly. It usually depends. If people end up with getting something, you know, very beneficial. If it's something minor, they just usually let it go with it, and I'm all right with that. I'm fine with that. If it's more major, then of course they'll just have to stop that. There was another one, someone was tweeting. Now for this one I haven't got confirmation it's true. It could just be that they're idiots, but you know, if we assume that they're not idiots, it was someone in Mythic Plus Siege of Borala saying that they've got to the last boss, they've killed everything, but they still don't have the like trash completion thing done. It's like, we've killed everything, what do you want us to do? So assuming that they actually have killed everything, that's another bit of a cock-up. You know, they're certainly not getting any decent gear out of it. If you can't complete the dungeon, you get nothing. Oh, for obviously item level 400 stuff, yeah, that's easy to roll back. I wouldn't like roll it back in the normal sense of it. I would just have it magically turn into a lower item level thing. Yeah, obviously you're not supposed to be getting 400. In fact, the way it's working now is... the Mythic Plus is capped at getting 355 items, but it can still Titan Forge to 385. Anything above 385, they should just... I think it depends what's happened with it. If it really has super Titan Forged, then I would just change it to a 385. If it's something where it basically just did a normal Titan Forge and somehow it went to 400, then... you know, but they can fix that. I would, if I were them, I wouldn't remove the item. That's just mean. I would just fix it to whatever seemed to be a sensible item, or what the item level should have been for the roles that it had. Because the way Titan Forge works is, in the game, because they explained this for Legion, I imagine it's exactly the same in BFA. So you roll for you've got an item, you've rolled successfully on a loot table, you've got an item. Then it does an internal roll. Is it Warforged or has a socket? Well, in fact, both. If the answer is yes, then it further goes on to say, so does it Titan Forge? If it does, then it's okay. Does it Titan Forge even more? If it does, even more. And it just keeps going until computer says no. So they should probably be able to work out what happened with it and just change it back to the item level it should have been. I hope. I assume. I don't know. But I'm guessing that's what it would be. So certainly no one should be getting anything higher than 385. And even a 385 is like, you're quite lucky. Well, you're very lucky. How is Blizzard having issues like this 7 expansions in? Because it's quite complicated, I imagine. You know, I'm not a computer programmer of any kind. I don't know how this works. But I can imagine that things like this, it might sound silly and simple, but You know, they tell us it's complicated, and I have got absolutely no technical knowledge to say it's not. I'm perfectly happy. I'm not going to pause for an hour now, but you can pause it when you watch it later. I'm perfectly happy to accept that it is complicated and little things like this can happen. It's disappointing, but the more complex the game gets, the more likely these little things to happen, I suppose. Warfronts have been crazy laggy. Have people even in Warfronts? I thought they'd only just started being able to turn the resources in, which is another thing. You have to make sure if you're going to turn the resources in, like profession stuff, that you get the quest first. Otherwise, you don't get the credit for it. That's been tweeted out today. You saw some people with 540 gear. Surely not. Surely not. Hold on. I haven't seen any of that. But anyway, I mean, obviously, anything above 385 will not be there tomorrow. That'd be, mind you, shouldn't really be there now because it can affect raid performance, obviously, can't it? Can't see anything. I'm actually, you have to be on the lookout a little bit as well for people just, you know, exaggerating things. Soul release has been a disaster, has it? I don't know it's been a disaster. It's difficult for me to say from certain points of view because I'm now playing very differently to Legion. I'm playing casually now as opposed to more seriously. But I haven't really come across major issues in terms of bugs. There's been a few, and the annoying thing is those bugs have largely been the ones that were reported in beta a long time ago. Have I heard if there's going to be a fix for Divine Purpose where it overwrites itself? Well, any bug should. I mean, there's a few things. Like I've heard some conflicting reports about what more serious Azerite traits, certain Azerite traits not stacking or something like that. But I've not seen anything confirmed. If that's the case, then that won't be intended. Don't the current sims act as if it isn't bugged? Sims do generally act as if they don't replicate bugs. I didn't even. Are you sure the bug's still in? Actually, the DP one. I thought that was already fixed, but I haven't checked. You can fly in Warfronts. Oh, there we go. Good tip, then. And bonus roll tokens are out at your local transmog shop. There you go. Yes. Hang on a minute. They shouldn't have any item from the box. What box? Hold on. What am I missing? They shouldn't have any item from the box. It's not things they've done in BFA and actually tied to do with it. No. What box are you talking about there, Ripple? I don't know what you're talking about. Hi, awesome dude. But the Warfronts was like... The only thing I'm really disappointed... I'm not actually disappointed with the launch. Because what I'm disappointed with in the expansion is just that Warfronts was... Warfronts and Islands just seem to me to be something they're doing to test out a technology. But the content itself is dull. The 385s and 400s they're getting from the Mythic Plus box. If you did a Mythic Plus in the last week of Legion, you got a cash today on N8. Oh! Oh, right. Okay, I see what you mean. Oh, yes. I see what you mean. Yes. No, in that case, I agree. So I didn't quite know what you meant in that case. But again, it's one of these things probably not intended. I see the Divine Purpose. I'll have to check again then. I am pretty sure they did fix it. Doesn't mean to say it hasn't broken again. And I don't really notice unless I'm deliberately trying to test it out. People are getting 390 at the end of... Yeah, well, anything above 385, of course, you shouldn't be getting. I mean, the cap is supposed to be at the moment 355, but it can Titan Forge, so it can still go up to 385. But of course, there shouldn't be loads of people getting... I mean, the thing is as well, you can sometimes... Obviously, it is bugged. There's too many people getting those high levels. But even if it weren't bugged, sometimes you can... They did say they were going to reduce the chance of Titan Forge. And sometimes, of course, you might think, well, it hasn't been reduced at all because you get lots of report people getting 385s. But if 100 people get a 385, that's still a tiny proportion. But 100 people all putting it on Twitter or Reddit seems like a lot. The NA reset is so scuffed. It always is. The NA release of a patch is the final beta test. And then they fix it all, so it's all nice and lovely for the European servers the next day. That's how it works. Well, it's not always nice. I mean, obviously, if there's major problems, then it can still be a bit balked on the EU as well. But maybe not quite so bad. The island expeditions should just been PvP, possibly. I mean, obviously, they couldn't have done it just PvP as it is now, because as it is now is considered for the serious players a significant source of artifact power. I don't care. It's not worth it enough for me. I did actually try and pug it. See, the problem is whenever people ask in my guild to do islands, it's always like I'm busy. But I did pug one. I just queued up for one. And it was a terrible experience. And it wasn't a terrible experience because the players were bad. I mean, that's the obvious thing, isn't it? Oh, if you queue up, you're going to get bad players. I don't think they were bad. I just think because we don't know each other and we're not talking to each other, it's just uncoordinated. And it's a bad experience. So the queuing up for them, I just don't think is very good. But even when you are with people you know, which I did a bit of when I was testing on the beta, it's a novelty. Do you know what? It's like the sort of thing, you know, like Trial of Style only comes round every so often, like every 6 months or something. Islands is that sort of content where if it did that, you would think, oh, this is nice. You know, if it was out every few months, a bit like, you know, a less frequent form of time walking, then you would think, oh, this is nice. But for it to just be there, I think it loses its shine very quickly. And Warfronts never has the shine in the first place. You know, and as I say, I think with both of them, like the Island Expeditions is testing that smart NPC technology. And Warfronts, I don't even know what Warfronts is testing, but, you know, they're clearly testing something with it. Because the whole concept of the Warfronts, it was like, oh, do you know what it was like playing Warcraft 1? Oh, get all misty-eyed, rose-tinted goggles, all that sort of stuff. And then they said, wouldn't it be cool if you can be just, not the general overlooking the whole thing, but just one of the little guys? No. How is it cool being one of the peons going, more wood? Or peasants actually did that. What did the peons say? Stop poking me, mostly. How is that fun? Being the peasant who goes and fetches more wood. So the whole concept of Warfronts, I think, is shocking. The only thing that's making me hold off on completely denouncing it is I think it's been done with something else in mind. You know how, like, the farm in Missa Pandaria was the precursor to garrisons? You know, garrisons was like the farms, but on a much grander scale. I think Warfronts are the same thing. I think Warfronts is testing something. Excuse me, voice is going already. Warfronts is testing something for something later on, I think. And I am actually interested in finding out what. Has the NA stuff released? Yeah, the NA stuff is out. Oh, is it more work? I don't remember then. Seems to be more wood to me. Warfront seems to be testing that AI on a larger scale. Maybe. I don't know. I got an impression it might be something else as well. Yeah, there's a certain amount of intelligence, sort of, to the NPCs in the Warfronts. But the experience for the player, I just think, is crap. I think it's boring. Absolutely boring. You do your 6 or so islands a week to cap, and that's it. Well, the expansion has been out for several weeks now, and I've done 1 island. And I don't wish to repeat the experience. You know, if someone in guild happens to ask for people to do them, and I'm free at the time. The problem is that's much less likely now, because when I'm free, I tend not to be playing as much. Casual, proper casual. Like I haven't played today. I didn't play yesterday. The last time I was on the game was Sunday. And that was mostly just for testing stuff out. Released is a strong word. It is released. It's just it's not finished yet. Which Uldir boss do I think is going to be the pug breaker? Gahoon, surely. It depends whether you mean for heroic and normal as well. Surely Gahoon will be a terrible one. But even before you get that far, there's a few like Mother. I think Mother eventually will be fine. But I think to begin with, Mother heroic at least will. In fact, even the first boss, do you know what? Even Talok can be awkward because I think the laser beams are even there on heroic and they kill you. So when you're descending in the lift, there's like these laser beams cutting across, and the only way to see them, because they're underneath, the only way to see them is to be at the edge of the lift. Now that requires a certain amount of coordination on the part of the raid, and particularly the tanks. So, yeah, there can be wholesale deaths going down the lift. There's a lot of bosses, you know, so Talok could definitely cause some real problems. And that's just the lift. And the lift is the easiest part. Phase 3 is the real bastard. Mother, because people just won't know how to deal with the various bits and pieces. And also it's a bit like Sisters with the moving across between the phases, where on Mythic it's really bad. Well, that's like that on Heroic. So Vectus is pretty bad. Vectus is horrible. Zol will require some coordination. The rest of them probably okay. Well, the reputation thing there, Quintin, is it wasn't really there in Legion, but it has traditionally been a thing. The last few expansions, you know. So Mists of Pandaria, it was a thing. It made me hate doing dailies. I mean, to be fair, I prefer World Quest somehow to dailies. I don't know why, because it's essentially the same sort of thing. But somehow, World Quest is a lot more palatable than dailies. I suppose it's just the rewards, maybe better rewards or something. Don't know. You know, you have to go to annoying NPCs as well. You just go to the area where they are, do them, and then it automatically completes. Maybe that's part of the appeal too. Cataclysm there was. Wrath there was. But with Wrath of the Lich King, and same with Cataclysm as well, wasn't it? I think. Just correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't play enough of Cataclysm to really remember. But you could have the tabards on, and when you had a particular tabard on, God, the voice is still going, then you could get rep for that faction in the dungeon or something like that. So you had, you know, more palatable ways of getting your rep, I suppose. The only thing you're excited about the Warfronts is the 370 piece. Well, the armour that comes with it, like particularly the Alliance armour, looks quite good. So there's some nice pieces of armour from it. Beyond, you know, ignoring the item level of it. Can't wait to see the LFR versions of some of these raid bosses. Well, the LFR versions of those raid bosses in the beta were actually harder than the heroic versions because they were massively overtuned. You're almost done with World Quest, almost revered with all factions. Well, you're not done then, are you? I'll be exalted. But yes, I mean, this is this how slacky I have been. I am still not revered with anyone. I mean, I would be if I was doing it just a few World Quests a day, I would be. But basically, I do World Quests at the moment twice a week. Once when I stream on Wednesdays and once when I stream on Sundays. And it's not going to be very long before I start streaming a game other than World of Warcraft on at least one of those days. I was thinking of doing some Lord of the Rings Online tomorrow, in fact. because I've not been playing enough of that recently. And I need footage. There's a big difference between going to the quest giver, do quest, back to the quest giver. There is, I think, you know. I think that could be part of it, Aaron, yes. With World Quest, you just have to go, because the way I do it, obviously the same way as anyone does it. You go to a zone and you just work your way around the zone doing the World Quests. And yes, that's a lot more convenient and therefore less frustrating than having to do it in a daily type thing. You're at least revered with all now. I mean, the thing that annoys me as well, and you could see this straight away. So, in terms of the rewards, obviously some of the rewards are like for professions. That's fine. That's okay. And Champions of Azeroth, you get the neck upgrades, and at Exalted, you get the helm. That's sort of okay as well, maybe. It's the revered rewards that do my head in, because at Honoured, when you get to level cap, you will be honoured with at least one faction. And you straight away can get a, what is it, a 320 cloak. Well, that's actually quite a nice boost when you've just leveled up. So that's decent. But revered, you can get access to 335 items. But I don't think anyone, not people who are playing it hardcore, not people who are playing it more casually like I am, I don't think anyone, when they get to revered, needs 335 pieces. That's what gets me. Because one round of Mythic Dungeons gets you 340 in most slots. You know, it depends on a bit of luck, but most slots. The chances of that revered piece. And remember, so I have got 340 items in every slot, and there's some that's more than that. You know, I even have a 355 in one slot. So I have zero use for a 335 unless somehow its stats were amazing compared with what I've got in there, and it's not. So when I get to revered, I have no use for those. Now you can argue, as I say, I've taken my time getting to revered because I'm a slacker. But I think even the people who didn't would still have done the Mythic Dungeons, and because I don't think many people would have been getting revered in the first week. And if they were, is it really worth putting 335 items in for the people who were getting revered before Mythic Dungeons came out? I really don't understand who those items are for. I don't get it. I'm missing people's comments now. Let me have a look. You're only done with your Exalted with everything. Well, exactly. Quite. Exalted gives you something for Champions of Azeroth. That's why people use the Champions of Azeroth contracts. Because, yes, that does. That's the most important one to get Exalted with, really. You bought a 335 just because the drop rate is so. It must have been, because I don't get who they're for. I'm surprised that anyone can get to revered and still need them at all. If only reps were account-wide. Yes, if reps were account-wide, then it would make sense. I agree with that completely. And I do not understand why reps are not account-wide. I understand why gaining rep can't be account-wide as such. Because obviously, you know, if you had 10 characters and you went round and did world quests on each of them in turn, okay, it'd take you a long time, but you would be able to get yourself up to Exalted in no time at all. So I completely understand why you can't allow 2 characters on the same account to get rep from doing the same world quest. But let's say the emissary for the day was the little rat things in the desert, Voldenai, okay? And you only need 4 for the emissary quest. And let's say you've got a few characters. So let's say on your monk, you go and do 4 of them to get the emissary cache. And you get the rep for doing those 4 world quests, and you get the rep for turning in the emissary cache. What I would do is, so let's say you now log onto your druid, but you do a 4 different world quests. So I would say, okay, they still get rep for that because they've done different world quests. But when they turn the emissary cache in, they don't get rep for that because you've already had a character get rep for turning the emissary cache in. That's how I would do it. So there's no double dipping because you've got multiple characters doing the same thing. But that rep is still shared across accounts. And that's how it works in some the games where it does like that anyway. I don't get it. What do I think about marksman hunts in BFA? Hunts in general. See, I've got a hunt, but I haven't really leveled it yet. But I obviously did in beta. I didn't really like marksman, but then marksman is possibly not the best for solo stuff. Might be better in groups up. I didn't really do dungeons with it. Beastmaster I liked. Beastmaster was fine for soloing. And I didn't play survival really. I might have dipped into it because I think someone on stream told me, you know, said, can I just try survival? So I think I might have dipped my toe in survival at one point during the beta, but not very much. I don't really, like, if I play a hunter, it's to play a ranged class. I'm not, if I want to play as a melee class, I've got a lot of melee classes I quite like to play. I have no idea how marksman is performing, if that's the question. But in terms of how it played, I didn't enjoy it. But like I said, I was soloing. And, you know, I've traditionally not enjoyed marksman for solo stuff. Beastmaster is much tidier. You've done every heroic every day. Every mythic every week. And you're still wearing 325 and 310 weapons. How? How? I've done two... it's possible... Well, before the reset today for North America. But it's possible to have done 3 weeks of Mythic Dungeons. I've just done 2. I didn't do Mythic Dungeons in the first week. And I have got 340 in every slot plus... All right, the 350 weapon I have, I bought off the auction house. However, I have got 3 weapons from dungeons, like 340 plus weapons. I even got a 345, but it still didn't outdo my 350. That's not just unlucky, because that also means you're not even getting any love from the people you're grouping with in these dungeons. Are you pugging them or something? That's spectacular. You've got 2 pieces out of your first 8 dungeons. This is ridiculous. There's some ridiculous look here. I don't know how this works. That's not even possible. You're guaranteed a piece from each dungeon, aren't you? I've had a piece. There's no... You're guaranteed a piece in a dungeon. You're guaranteed a piece in a dungeon, surely. I've never done a dungeon and not got a piece from it. It's like, if you don't get a piece from one of the bosses before the last boss, you know you're getting a piece off the last boss. That's how it's always worked for me. How can you... Something doesn't seem right there. Either myself and the people I've done dungeons with have... Yeah, we can't be that lucky. Survival is great for solo play. It might be. It's just that it's melee. And there's a lot of melee classes I quite like, but I don't generally like the ranged classes. I've gone right... I used to quite like casters in the game. I've gone right off them. So, really, Hunter is my only... Well, not my only option. Shadow Priests are actually okay. I'm alright with Shadow Priests. But I haven't really made one. The only rogue in the guild. You can get nothing from one. That just seems weird. Because I've never not got something. So I've done 19 Mythic Dungeons now. Because I did 9 in the first week. I didn't have the rep for Siege of Borealis. And then I've done, in the last reset, the full 10. So I've done 19 Mythic Dungeons. I've never not got an item. In fact, in a couple of dungeons, I got 2 items. But I've never not got an item. That's weird. That is weird there. Because it's not even just me. It's like the people I group with. I'm pretty sure that everyone's got items in those as well. Something sounds a bit funny to me. In 3 weeks of Mythics, you haven't got a single... well, not getting a particular slot, I suppose, is possible. But, I mean, I have had 3 weapons at 3... I had 2 at 340 and 1 at 345. But, you know, none of them were an upgrade on what I already had, so... You've had naught from some and 2 from some, but seems to average out 1. See, I've had 1 from everyone. I don't understand then. Maybe, well, I'll never find out because there isn't really the need to do Mythic Dungeons anymore, of course, with Mythic Plus. With this reset, we'll do 1 Mythic Plus to get ourselves a key, and then we do it, sorry, Mythic Dungeon to do us get ourselves a key. Probably Freehold, I think they were talking about, the group I do it with, because it's quick. Well, it's quick when we don't try and do when we don't try and do skips that actually end up pulling the whole dungeon, because that's happened before. Blizz gives streamers loot. I wasn't streaming it though. I haven't streamed any of my dungeons. You've not had a single weapon because I don't know when they're going to happen. It's obviously not only am I a social, but the people I'm doing it with are socials. There's no, you know, it's casual. So I don't know when I'm going to be doing the dungeons. You've not had a single weapon drop from Mythics, but you got lucky on your lot with a BOE 350 axe. Oh, it's the is it the axe I have? The haste crit one. Yeah, it is, isn't it? That's the one I bought. Oh, that's good. That's nice. I guess Azerite is something, but today it just drops naught mythics for you. Well, I don't know. Either you lot are unlucky or I'm lucky, and my whole group is lucky as well. I'll have to ask them actually if they've been definitely, because it seems to me, I haven't specifically asked them or been paying it. I haven't been doing a tally or anything, but it has seemed to me that everyone has got a piece when we've been doing them. In fact, I'm pretty sure at least the warrior who tanks for us has, because every time he gets a piece from a boss that's not the last boss, he always goes, oh damn, I'm not going to get a piece off the last boss, because it always seems to be the last boss he wants loot from. Now, Gary, that told Dagger faster with rogues. Yes, no, yes. Here's the thing. Someone explain this to me. Right. Basically, in theory, you can skip something undoing a lock, right? But you don't need a rogue to do that. Scribes can make lockpicks out of paper, apparently. Blacksmiths can make skeleton keys. I have a bag of skeleton keys. And I didn't know about the Tol Dogar thing. And I still don't know where it is. I need to look it up. Because someone in Guild was asking, are there any lockboxes in BFA? And I said, well, there must be, because I can make skeleton keys. And they said, but I haven't got any yet. And I said, well, now you say it. I've not found any yet either. And then someone else said, there, for doing a skip in Tol Dagar. Or Tol Dagor, sorry. And I thought, where? I didn't know about this. I've got like over a dozen skeleton keys in my bag. I had no idea we could do a skip. So, if there's 3, okay. I'm going to have to look it up then, Anna. Because I honestly have never... I mean, it makes sense for like a prison dungeon for there to be some. But I had no idea. I'm going to have to look at where they are. As you go into the tunnel after the first boss, go straight ahead rather than to the left. Right, okay. Interesting. I'll have to keep an eye out though. Is the skip in the sewer tunnels? Right. I shall have to keep an eye on that one at least. We'll learn one at least. But yeah, you wouldn't need a rogue for it. You just need skeleton keys, which blacksmiths can make. Now that I can't actually remember if the skeleton keys can only be used by blacksmiths. And scribes can also make them. Which I thought was strange. You can also use them to unlock the ads in the second fight. Alright. So, yes, we've been missing out basically. Although it would still seem strange that skeleton keys and the scribe equivalents exist only for that. I do still think it's strange there are no lockboxes if there aren't. And it's certainly true that I haven't found any. Will profession items work in Mythic Plus? Why shouldn't they? There's no reason why they shouldn't work in Mythic Plus. I'm not sure. Let me just go online and check, actually, because this is quite important. There's also a secret boss that drops a pay. This is the problem with going casual. You miss... In theory, a casual should know all about these things. But given that I don't really care about pets or mounts, I mean, if they're there, I'll have them. Yeah, I don't look enough stuff up now. Or talk with people who do look these things up and therefore nick information from those people. Without rogues, it takes a lot of keys. Surely not. They're not expensive to make. I mean, they're cheap as chips to make. But I'm just gonna. Let's just go. I'm just gonna check it out here. Should have been jewelers instead of scribe. I think the idea with the scribe is you make a magical scroll that you read off it, it unlocks it. But that's just silly. But then it's no sillier than having a key made out of paper either. You're also a rogue. Well, I mean, a rogue is a good class for a casual, of course, because always useful. Pet battle is crap in BFA. Well, I haven't pet battle since right at the start of WoD. Right, let's have a look at this situation. So I'm in game. Oh yeah, you've got to be a blacksmith to even use them. So your query about it working in Mythic Plus may well be valid, because yes, if it does work in Mythic Plus, it means you either want a rogue or a blacksmith or a scribe. I'm just having a look now what they actually cost in materials. Oh, nothing at all. 4 monolite ore is all that's needed for them. Cheap as chips. No problem at all. Right, let's get out of there. There used to be a Bissless on Icy Veins. Give an idea of what items would be good for... do you have to? You always have to sim the item, even when you get a so-called BIS list. You've got to remember... So if you've got a BIS list, and let's say you have 3 items that are different. So let's say you've got your BIS list, and let's say you've got all of those items off that list, apart from, say, the belt, the gloves, and the legs. All right? You have different belt, gloves, and legs. Well, that could mean that the wrists you have, even though it's off the BIS list, and you've got the ones off the BIS list, may not be because the balance of stats that you have has changed it. So a BIS list is only BIS because it works together. If you have any deviation from it, and that can include Warforged or Titanforged pieces, that actually might make another piece better, because maybe now you've got too much haste and you want a bit more crit or something like that. So you always have to sim pieces of gear on their individual merits. And if you have a high item level piece that is replaced just because it's the other piece simmed a bit better, don't throw the first piece away. Keep it, because you might get another piece later that works in tandem better with it. It's, you know, if you want to min max, there's a bit of work needs doing. It's not difficult work because raid bots makes it easy, but there is a bit of time needed. So you do realistically want to sim items, because lists are just there for the people who just want a list, and it's like, I don't want to sim anything, just give me a list, and it's like, here then. It's not necessarily the best. Like, I can almost guarantee that after the dust has settled, if you're looking, not that there's any validity in this, but if you're looking at the top ranked sim DPS profiles on WoW Progress, they're very unlikely to be in an actual full BIS list, because they'll just have more Titanforged pieces. If you use it in Mythic Plus, you might run the risk of not killing enough trash. Possibly, but that doesn't stop you. I mean, I suppose it depends how much trash you realistically need. There is a lot of trash in Tol Dagor, isn't there? I could imagine that at least one skip might be suitable. And it probably allows you to choose which trash you want to do as well. I mean, Toll de Gore in the group I'm in always takes a long time, but that's because they keep trying to kill us all with people try and rush into the cannons and kill the rest of us. So it's possible that when we've got a timer on it, people will behave themselves a bit better. Pretty sure the work in Mythic Plus similar to Cut Stars where professions could be used. I think it meant just from the point of view of skeleton keys and stuff. But, you know, it will... yeah, I don't see why they would have those things in the dungeon and then not allow it to work in Mythic Plus. It's like you don't need the skips if it's not timed anyway. Azerite talents might get reworked. I think they already have been. I think there's already been another tuning pass, but I haven't seen the results yet. And there will inevitably be one after this week because there'll have been a whole week of raid data. 30 item level versus bis trait can go both ways. Yeah. But it's more the case that it's not just a case that something that Titan forges that's not bis will be better than the theoretical bis. It's not just that. It's that if you have several pieces that are not in that bis list, it can change what your bis, let's say bis wrists are. Like I said, if you've got a particular set of gloves, belt, trousers, the best wrist for you might not be what's on the bis list because of the balance of stats. I mean, to sim, you should really just use your own character. Have I discussed the balance of Azerite traits? Not particularly. Some are worth 2k DPS for some classes. What, stacked up? You mean stacked of 3? I'm not sure that any one trait is worth 2k. Stacks of 3 of them can be. But also remember they're still being tuned. I think there was some tuning done today, but I'm not 100%. Oh, you meant about Azerite traits with item level comparison. Yeah, Azerite gear obviously adds another layer of complexity to it. And again, absolutely needs you to sim them. Using 325 bis trait over 340 piece. Well, yeah. I mean, the other thing about the Azerite gear, of course, is it's not even just a case of you might use a 325 over a 340 piece because of bis trait against rubbish trait. It can also be you might use a 325 piece over a 340 piece because your neck isn't high enough level to unlock the 340 traits. That's a possibility. Admittedly, it's a bigger possibility for slackers like me, but that is a possibility. Oh yeah, absolutely, Elgin, absolutely. That is good advice. Do not throw anything away just because it sims crap for you. If it's high, I always say this, and I said this all the way through Legion as well. Never, ever throw a competitively high item level piece away. When I say competitively high, I mean specifically just going by the item level. Like, people might mock the clutter in my bags, but I never throw anything away if the item level is on a par with the rest of my gear, because you never know when some tuning or something might suddenly make what appears to be a crap item good. This applies to trinkets, Azerite gear, anything at all. Never destroy a high item level piece, because you never know. I mean, after a month or two, have a clear out, because by then it'll be 20, 30 item levels behind. But, you know, until then, keep it. Keep everything. Will the Heart of Azeroth level be a big impediment for semi-casuals? Potentially, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let's say, for example, like, I can't even unlock all the traits on my 340 pieces. Not even close. So let's say I really don't think I would, but let's say I went into a heroic this week and I got a 370 piece. I have no chance. There's no chance at all. You know, if I wear that, it's just because of the stats. And there is no chance of me being able to unlock that for a long time. You have your neck at 363 item level. I can't remember what mine is. It's not that. In terms of actual level, I can't remember what even level it's at. A long way off what the raiders in my guild need. For tomorrow, they needed to have neck level 21. But they also needed revered with Champions of Azeroth, which is actually quite easy. Because even though I am not, and not even close, if I'd have even just done a few world quests every day, just specifically, which I'm not even counting the extra stuff from the contracts, I easily would have been. You never throw any gear away, yeah. Well, I don't. Until it's so low item level that you know that, you know, like a tier behind, basically. As soon as a new tier comes out, like basically what I did when I was in Trial of Valor, I had a clear out in my bag in Legion for all the heroic dungeon, like the blues I was still collecting, because I still had a load of blue gear. Then I disenchanted it. And when Nighthold came out, I had a clear out of stuff, and when Tomb of Sargeras, same sort of thing. So with the release of each tier, I basically have a clear out. But until then, I'm very careful about what I get rid of. You hate getting BIS trinkets behind world bosses. Oh, right. Yes, there is a really good trinket. Dropping off a world boss again. It is with a gym. It might not be as bad as with a gym because I think although it's BIS, I don't think it's BIS even silly item levels behind, as far as I know. Spawn rate of Anchorweed. I saw a good meme about that. Oh, let me try and find it. Oh, no. Where is it? Ah, stop. Where was it? Used to be a lot quicker with all this stuff. Stop messing about. In regards to trait DPS increases, Thunderous Blast is Thunderous Blast is a nice one, yes. Oh, is it 2K? I'm not sure. I'm sure it's not 2K. Is it? I'm not sure about that. Let's it wouldn't really make that much difference because it just splits the damage anyway. I feel the need to check that. Aha, no. Right. Careful with Blood Mallet. No. You don't research anything off Blood Mallet. I'm not going to attack it like Noxic. Problem with Blood Mallet is they sim base it, everything's daily. No, they don't. No, they don't. Things get out of date there. It takes them quite a while to get it updated. They don't sim. I don't know who's told you that. That is a lie or a misinformation. No, they don't. Even yesterday, it was out of date. That is not what they're doing. If they're stating it on the website, they really shouldn't be, because they are not. Unless they've suddenly started doing it today and will maintain doing it. But even that, I would think. But what will I see? Will I see a statement saying that they update it every day? Or will I see some proof that they're updating it every day? Because yesterday, it was not updated. I'll get rid of that now. Everyone's seen that. And if they have suddenly today started doing it every day, which I don't really see how you can say you're doing it every day when this is the first day of you saying you're going to do it every day. I don't know why they weren't doing it before. Yeah, but links to what? Because the links are not all that. Their stuff isn't from somewhere. It's done. Like, they produce it. You know, they link to where it's come from, but the data isn't updated. That's the thing. It doesn't dynamically update. The best thing is always to sim your stuff. Because apart from anything else, even if it were updated... Wait, hang on, something's going up here. Go away. Even if it were, it's still not for your character. But anyway, let's a quick check. It's easy to check. Let me just open something up. What do I want? Right. Someone tell me quickly a piece for Thunderous Blast. Right, okay. Alright, I'll find it myself then. Let me just see. Oh, not on that one. God, I've got to find a piece with Thunderous Blast on now. Someone tell me a plate piece with it on. Oh, Temple of... Okay, great. That'll do. Temple of Doofa. Aha, great. Brilliant. Desert Guardian's Breastplate. That will do. So, what am I looking for? Oh, hold on. Desert Guardian's Breastplate. Right, I'll just do it for just normal patchwork stuff. And then we shall see. Do I think Zappy Boy's spirit will be the end boss in BFA? No. He'll just be one of those lost souls milling around Bunsamdi. No, he didn't. He's dead. Any Zappy Boy you may see from time to time is either a figment of your imagination or an imposter. Ah, it's nearly there. Come on, come on, come on. Right, let us see. Ah, what's it done? Something's gone wrong. Try again. Did I do something stupid? I might have done something stupid. Right. Might be a bit slower at the moment with obviously new patch out. How's the raid in NA goes so far? That might be a good question. Let's see if there's been any complaints on Twitter. Can't see any. Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, let's have a look what Blizzard have been saying. We quickly fixed the underlying issue. That's... Oh, I retweeted that, I think. Did I? No, I didn't. So basically, okay, the Mythic Plus thing they've said is fixed. Let's have a look what else they're saying. Warcraft devs. No, they haven't really said much at all. Right, anyway, let's have a look at these sims. No. You're having a laugh. Basically, for me, Thunderous Blast is worth a grand total at the 340 item level. So taking it from a mythic dungeon. It's worth a grand total of about 100 DPS. That's a single one, of course. But even a triple's not going up to 2,000. So I don't know where people are getting this from. Where are you getting this 2k from? I think a lot of people are struggling on the last boss, so they bloody well should. But the problem with the last boss, Cahoon, is more the like the netball match you have to have on either side of it. That's the... And again, I'm not oh dear. See, this is... Well... I mean, this is the problem with with wanting a one-stop shop. The one-stop shop is never specialised. It's always very general. You know, I can understand people wanting the convenience. Well, why do I go to this place when it only does Rep Paladins or Guardian Druids or Disciplined Priests? I can go to this site and it does everything. And it's like... Well, I mean, yeah, the thing is, Raidbots has even added in more functionality now with some advanced options. So even Raidbots is such... For something like this, even I would do it. I mean, I still use Simcraft for some things. You know, mostly you use Simcraft if you want to monkey about with the APL or something like that. If you want to do something cunning. And then the first few times I try it, I'll break something. It doesn't work at all. But that's what you use Simcraft for. Raidbots is so good that there is no reason not to use it for anything that's like, I want to compare this piece or that piece or whatever. It's the best resource to have emerged during Legion. A lot of the sims show 385 Azerite armor and staking. Yeah, a triple Thunderous Blast at that item level. Potentially, yeah, absolutely. But a single one, I don't think so. And certainly the trait itself at any levels that we've got right now. I mean, we could easily sort that. If I can find, because I'm still logged in the game, let me find a raid piece that has... The thing is, it's not on all the raid pieces, so even getting 385... I mean, I know Mythic Plus is going to, you know, you're going to be able to get those pieces soon. I'll tell you what then, okay, we'll go back, hold on. Let's try and see if I can find a double, so. We'll do it, we'll set it at 385. Actually, I think with Thunderous Blast, 3 of them is just going to be a triple what one of them is. I don't think there's any special functionality with it. So I'll just do it for 1 for now. Right, okay. Because Simcraft, you need the codes for the gear. And also, if you want to do it for Azerite gear with certain traits enabled and others not, you know, it's fiddlier. I remember doing the video on how to use Simcraft with artifact weapons at the start of Legion, and you know, and I thought it's going to turn some people off. But when raid bots came along, all of a sudden it was loads easier. Right, let's have a look what this is worth then. So at level 385, a single one is now worth a much more respectable 600 DPS. So that would be just under 2k for a triple stack, not a single stack. So there we go. For a triple stack, yes, 2k. But I don't think it would be worth 2k for a single stack for anyone. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously you get a slower service if you are a patron, even though it doesn't cost much. But the solution is to do things in advance. Obviously, if you were to try and do it now, where people are in a raid, it's like, and I know sometimes, you know, if you're talking about a Titan Forge piece, you sort of you're not going to do it for every item level of every piece of gear you might possibly want. But if you can do things in advance, it does make it a lot better. Because the other thing I think with raid bots as well, although I've never had to do this, you can still use raid bots to set what you want and then just get the profile to stick into Simcraft, couldn't you? You know, I mean, you don't have to actually run the sim in raid bots if you're not a patron. Or if you try to do it on peak time whilst not being a patron. But anyway, let's log out of the game again. Because people will think I'm online otherwise. Yeah, you can just, yeah. Because that'll reduce your chances of making a silly error as well. Well, of course, yeah, raid bots isn't a simulation program. It's an interface for Simcraft. Simcraft is what does this. That's why raid bots is so good. You know, it's not like one of these other things that is done by a couple of people who can't possibly have the same expertise as the chief theory crafters of every spec in the game. It's just an interface, a nice user-friendly interface for Simcraft. I mean, Simcraft runs on your own computer. If you use that, obviously you download it, so you're running it off your own computer. Something's gone wrong on my Twitter. I can't work out what. Oh, it's my internet browser, really. It's done a thing. Oh, bugger it. Sod it. I'll have to work it out later. Hi, Shopee. Well, we've come to an impasse then, so we've solved that little problem. Thunderous Blast can be worth 2k at 385 item level if you have 3 of them. So what we're going to talk about next. Did I miss anything, by the way, while we were discussing that? Oh, someone, David Walker, was asking, when did Zappy Boy die? Zappy Boy died when I shoved my Ashbringer up his ass. They don't like it up him. Has anyone unlocked any of the new allied races yet? I actually put the Magar Orc up there, just to try and prompt a bit of that. It'll be a while before I'll be doing it. Mind you, I don't actually want the Magar Orc, so I don't care anymore. I would have quite liked a Dark Iron Dwarf if I was going to be Alliance. But I'm unlikely to unlock that as Alliance for quite a while. You've just got your Dark Iron Mage. What, you mean you... Do you mean you boosted it to 110 and then got it to 120? Or have you actually leveled it all the way from 20 to 120? because that would be horrible. Oh, you liked Maga. I'm not really keen on Magarox. What do I think about the professions? I have mixed views. I think the scrapper makes them better, and the fact that the professions can craft useful consumable items. So like as a blacksmith, for example, okay, at the moment technically it's useful because I can make I've made myself some 355 trousers, and when I get enough hydrocore again, I'll be able to make myself a 355 belt. So, you know, that's nice. But at some point, even when I mean, because I'm never going to be able to craft the 385 ones before it's useless. Because as a casual, I'm never, ever going to get the Sanguisine needed to make the 385 ones. It'll probably take a while before I get the 370. And I might even have some better Mythic Plus or Raid stuff anyway. And the thing I don't like about the crafted gear, like, so it's taken a lot of resources to be able to make these 355 legs. But it's still random stats. And I didn't get the best stats. I didn't get the worst. Could have been worse. I've still worn them. But I didn't get the best ones. And it's not like the blue gear. The blue gear you can keep crafting and crafting and crafting till you get the stats you want and then sell the rest. You can't do that with this. One, you can't sell them if you don't get the stats you want. And two, it takes too many resources. So from that point of view, although in theory it's a nice thing to be able to craft for yourself, realistically it's not. You're sick of getting stuck in terrain or narrow passages as a Tauren. We don't seem to be learning the key lesson here, do we? What should we be doing then? What is the solution to Shope's problem? If you are sick of getting stuck in terrain or narrow passages as a Tauren, what should we do? Answers on a postcard. Oh, you did the 110 boost then. Yeah, that makes more. Because, yeah, it would be torture, especially at the start of an expansion with so much to do. Torture to actually level from 20 to 120 on anything. What's the drop rate like for Sanguisil? I forget. However, the only way you're going to be able to get it at a reasonable enough pace to usefully craft yourself the 385s is by doing it on multiple modes, including Mythic. Mythic Raid, I mean, the 385 pieces are the Mythic Raid equivalent pieces, and those are the people who will realistically be getting enough. I can scrap them for hydrocores refunded. I assume so, but I'm not going to get all my hydrocores back, am I? You know, it's no good it taking... How many hydrocores did it cost? 15 hydrocores, I think. Something like that. Can't remember now. I think it was 15. If when I scrap it, it gives me 2 back. You get 100% of your hydrocores back, do you? Ah. What about your expulsum? Because I don't have a load of that either. I didn't know that, though. If that being the case, that's maybe not as bad then. But it does still depend on the expulsum because I don't have loads of that either, you know. So, okay, I'm not going to get my expulsum back, so... All right, then. I have to wait till I get more expulsum still. Have I talked about the Mythic Cache bug? Yes. But it's a bug that's... Well, actually, no, I don't know that that bug's been fixed, actually. I'm sure it will. What's my view on Flasks being basically pointless? What do you mean by pointless? And what do you mean by convenient resource? I mean, what's interesting is because Like in Legion, you couldn't craft cauldrons at the start of the expansion. They came later. So basically people had to get their own flasks. Or maybe the guild would get them for you, but whatever. You know, you had your own flasks. Whereas at the start of this, you can do flask cauldron straight away. So it'll be much more likely that raiders will just get flasks from the cauldron. Unless, of course, they're one of those unlucky ones who are sat out when the cauldron gets put out, but then brought in when it's not. Like I'm talking about for Mythic Progress, of course. Not worth the time and effort gathering materials, which essentially takes more time than the time you can spend using them. Well, flasks are all about min-maxing anyway. So for the people who need them, they're inevitably worth it. But in terms of time and effort gathering them, obviously people will judge what's the best way to get them. Is it being a herbalist, or is it being someone who can get gold some other way and paying a herbalist to give you the materials? As long as you don't let the cauldron expire, there'll always be 10 to spare in a mythic run. Well, the way you usually do it is, yeah, you take the flask out of the cauldron, consume it, and then half the raid takes another one. And if you're an alchemist, you're generally advised not to take the other one, because you get double use anyway. You're tired of farming for anchorweed? Yes, people keep talking about anchorweed. See, I haven't leveled up my herbalist yet, so I have no particular comment on that just yet. But we have seen, as I say, we have seen many things about it. The turtle is now much faster for that maze thing. Yes, it's actually now all right. I no longer mind that world quest. It's all right. So I'm quite happy. I suppose I'm quite happy with all the world quests for the Tortollans, really. I like the shell game. I've always liked the shell game. Even though my UI doesn't work very well for it, because the player bar and the target bar block off two of the shells. So, and sometimes I get myself into the position where I've got two visible shells left and the two hidden ones left. And it's a bit like, well, I don't know what's under that bar. So I have to guess. Oh, the Control Z, does that? Oh, right, actually, does that work? I think, now that you've said that, I think someone said that to me and I've completely forgotten. All right, I might have to do that then. Yeah, I know what you mean. UI hide, basically. But no, so I quite like the shell game. The beachhead. The thing that annoys me most about the beachhead is the bloody memes about, you know, another turtle has made it to the water. It just makes me hate it. But the actual quest itself, I don't mind. I did hate it on the beta because it didn't seem to work quite right. Whereas now it's perfect. So sometimes, for example, I seem to be hitting the seagulls and it wouldn't killing them. Whereas now it's, you know, I've got no issues with it at all. I can kill all the seagulls and all the crabs. It's no problem. So it just seems to work better live than it did when I was trying it in the beta. So that is no longer a problem. The only problem I have is everyone going on about bloody turtles. And the maze thing, now that it moves speedily along, is loads better as well. Is that it? Is there another one? I can only think of 3. Are they the only Tortollan world quests? That doesn't seem quite enough, does it? But I think that's the only 3 they've got at the moment. So on balance, I would say so far they're more enjoyable than Kirin Tor ones. Now, because the only Kirin Tor one I actively enjoyed was the Enigma one. I didn't really... The barrels of fun didn't... Because sometimes the barrels would go through each other. It wouldn't really obey physics. So I didn't like that aspect of it. I wasn't keen on the bubbles one because some of them were dead quick and easy, no problem. But some of them just took so long. And then the Magic of Flight one. No, is it? No. Actually, that might have been the bubbles one. Whichever one was the platform jumping was appalling. A turtle has made it to the water, yes. Unfortunately, because it now works, unlike in the beta, that's all I hear. I never hear the cycle of life can be cruel. Because unfortunately, you end up saving them all now because it's actually quite easy. You're quite excited to get into Mythic Plus tomorrow. Normal raid gear is going to be defunct if you get your way. Well, and this is another thing about it as well. You know, in terms of raid finder gear, who's that for? I mean, I am as lazy as I can imagine being in World of Warcraft now. Honestly, as lazy as you can imagine. Basically, this is what I do in World of Warcraft. I play it on I have been playing it on Wednesday when I stream, playing it on Sundays when I stream, playing it on Fridays and Saturdays to do the Mythic Dungeons and a few other bits and pieces. And that's it. And I am not going to need or expect to get upgrades from LFR. So I don't know how idle you have to be to want LFR gear. Maybe it'll be better in later tiers, but the starting stuff, the start LFR, is going to have gear that's really shit. Your prop palibis is going to be from dungeons, not old gear. Well, that may be said of a number of specs. You can see the Valkyr one shows up. The robot one is not so clear on mine anyway. I don't think it is. The Valkyr, yes, you can see clearly. The spiky turtle is generally okay. There's a few that are big enough that it dips below my bars. Did you miss the hot mess that is the NA servers? Yeah. I think it's still a mess though. They're just slowly tidying it up. You just got a 325 weapon from an island scenario. If a player gets a drop that gives 3% upgrade, but the item is, for example, 10% upgrade for someone else, do you keep it or even argue your case? If not, where should the line be drawn? What I would say in that situation is, obviously if it's a pug, it's yours. You know, a pug is essentially a very selfish affair, because you're never going to see these people again, potentially, so there's no investment in them. If, however, it's a guild run, and it's an organised guild run where you as a raid team are going to be raiding week after week together and progressing together, and progress is the key thing, you know, in that particular case, there should still be no decision to be made, because there should be an officer team who decides that. And the officer team will inevitably say the person for whom it's a 10% upgrade, if it's possible to be traded, that is, should have it. Unless the person for whom it's a 10% upgrade does half as much damage as everyone else, in which case you could still argue it's a 5% upgrade on a normal person, and maybe they should still have it, actually. So that's what I would say on that. I don't think it's ever a question that should ever be asked, because if it's an upgrade for you, it's an upgrade for you. And if you're in a min-maxing situation, so a progress raid team, then there should be other people making that decision. Well, if they attend half the raids, then they certainly shouldn't get it, because you don't do any DPS when you're logged out. But that would be a decision for a loot council. And as I say, the loot council would, in a simple situation, would inevitably judge in favour of the person for whom it's a 10% upgrade. Unless, of course, there is another caveat to it. Unless, of course, the reason why... Yeah, but a 10% is even huger. Unless the reason why it's a 10% upgrade for someone else is because they were a lazy bastard and didn't do all their mythic dungeons that they should have done or something like that. So if the reason why it's such a big upgrade for them is because they were put in less effort than others, then Sodom. But it would still be a decision for a loot council. And if there is no loot council, then that means your raid team isn't serious enough about loot, in which case you only give out things that are not an upgrade for you. If you don't want it and can't disenchant it, you can disenchant anything. The scrapper means you can disenchant any piece of gear you get. Well, at least from raids and dungeons and stuff. Not obviously quartermaster gear, but you know. So there is never a situation of I can't disenchant it. Everyone can disenchant effectively. That's why huger, there's nothing wrong with huger. That's a perfectly valid word. What would you say? Huger is better than more huge. More huge just sounds stupid. That doesn't fit. Huger's fine. Perfectly valid word. Where was I? Yeah. Everyone can disenchant. That's why enchanting is now. Enchanting is a shit profession. If it weren't for the fact that I've been an enchanter since vanilla on my character consistently, I wouldn't be an enchanter now. Yeah, I could say larger, but the term that was used was huge. Why would I say larger? Huger. I'm saying huge is the base, and I'm describing something that's more huge than huge. So huger. Perfectly valid. Don't make me get the dictionary out. So yeah, anyway, the point is, yes, I'm a teacher. I get to meet my students tomorrow as well. I don't know what students, because there seems to have been some delay in sorting the classes out. So I've got lessons planned for tomorrow, and I'm covering for a teacher who's starting, but he's not starting until next week because he's in Spain. So it's all going to be a bit of a mess this week. But in theory, I am beating facts into people's heads tomorrow. Where was I? I've completely forgotten now. Yeah, enchanting is rubbish. Because you don't get the benefit of saying, oh, well, at least I can disenchant my epic gear. Because, well, everyone can disenchant their epic gear into things that are probably more useful. Because the other problem with enchanting is, what do you use it for? You use it for ring enchants. Oh, they're bloody expensive as well. Eight bloody crystals. Epic crystals needed for one ring enchant. But anyway, ring enchants. Cloaks. I'm an enchanter and I can't even remember what I bloody well enchant now. It's not cloaks. Tailors do cloaks now. Ring enchant. Oh, weapon enchants. Yeah. So rings and weapons, that's it. You know, you can enchant your gloves, but that's only for like faster crafting or gathering or something. Enchanters can enchant their wrists so that we can have a 4-minute cooldown on our Hearthstone. Very nice. But, you know. I have got a huge workload. You wouldn't believe my workload. Because the workload, see, this is one of the reasons that tipped me over the edge and said I can't do Mythic Raiding, right? So before summer, I already knew, and I know you're trolling me, but I don't care. I already knew that my workload this year was going to be greater, okay? Let's get back onto words that people will be happy with. But it's got even greater because yesterday I was told, oh, we're gonna run this particular science course. And I said, right, we've never run that in this college. He said, yeah, but we're going to. And I've somehow volunteered to run it. So, with no resources for it, I've never taught it. I can't even ask someone who has taught it. And I'm doing a lesson on it tomorrow morning. So that was fun. So, absolutely, I have, you know, I didn't think I'd be able to maintain a Mythic Raider lifestyle with the work I've got on this year. That is now certain. If I hadn't made the decision to stop being a Mythic Raider before summer, I would have had to have done it now, where of course it would have been much more detrimental and problematic to my raid guild having to do so on the eve of the raids coming out, because there is no way I can maintain a schedule with the amount of work I've got on this year. No way at all. It's unbelievable. If anything, enchants would be more valuable because of the scrapper. How will it be more valuable? Less valuable. Enchanting materials, you hardly ever need an enchant. At the moment, fair enough, because you're upgrading lots of stuff. There comes a point where it slows down a lot. And the only time you're going to need a new enchant is when you get a new weapon, which after a while is going to be quite infrequent, or a new ring. Do the teachers get fined for taking holidays during term time? Well, this particular person is only just starting at the college, and he had his contract be that he doesn't start until the 10th. But I think you'd get more than fined for taking a holiday during term time, because you would never be given permission, so it would be taking absence without leave. You'd basically be sacked. 10k gold you're paying for them. What, paying for what? The enchants or the crystals? That seems a lot for crystals. Oh, the ring enchants, yeah. Well, it is 8 for the good ring. Oh, well, the cheaper ring enchants, not so bad. But the good ring enchants, 8 bloody chaos crystals. Plus, you need someone to have got to, level 75 enchanting, which doesn't sound that much, but given that it's not easy to get up to. I'm at 70 at the moment. To get to 75, I'm going to have to craft 5 more weapon enchants. And they're not cheap either. And the thing is, I can't be bothered with it. 2 rings and weapon, yeah. That's all. That's all you're enchanting. What can you do to convince your boss to give me more time off for WoW? Do loads more work in a short space of time. Or win the lottery, in which case you don't have to convince your boss, you just hand your notice in. That's a good plan too. But it never worked for me. I mean, I always told my bosses that I play World of Warcraft. I used to tell them, whenever I had to work an evening as well, for like an open evening, I always used to make it clear that I was missing raiding. They weren't impressed. No appreciation for what I was doing. You disenchanted 5 epic items, you got leveling. See, the thing is, you can sort of disenchant epic items now, but it goes back to the earlier thing I was saying. There are some epic items that we might have that, although they're not an upgrade at the moment, might be. So there's certain things I don't disenchant at the moment, just because maybe after a tuning pass, all of a sudden I'll need to wear it. Or because I get other pieces of gear, maybe I need those stats more. Schools shouldn't be telling parents when they can and cannot take holidays anyway. It's not ridiculous, and it's not schools that are telling them, it's the government that's telling them. But it also isn't ridiculous because it's very disruptive to an education to take them out, because you miss a load of lessons. So when you come back, not only have you missed those lessons, but you struggle with the lessons you're now doing because it was built on a foundation that you've just missed. But it's not schools that do it, it's the government. It's just that the government tell the schools to do it. There's some kids, believe you me, when I taught in schools, there are some kids, we'd have had a party if their parents would have taken them off on holiday during term time. Take a sickie. I don't do sickies, that's dishonest, that's stealing. You're stealing wages. Teachers, no, well, to be fair, I mean, it's swings and roundabouts, isn't it? We can't take holidays whenever we like, but we do get 13 weeks off a year. So, most people don't get 30. All right, we have to do work during that time as well. There's no way, unless you're lazy, that you can actually do all your work just in term time. But 13 weeks off, where you're basically managing your own time, and if truth be told, you're not doing a lot of work in it, is pretty good. It's pretty good going. Teachers get the same holidays as students. It depends where you work. No, not in a school. Generally, yes. There's a few training days you'll have. I don't work in a school. There's basically 3 types of thing. There's a school, there's a sixth form college, and there's an FE college. So in a school, you get most of the days off that the students get. There's like a few training days. In a sixth form college, you probably work an extra week or 2 compared to the students. Like an extra week. Although the boss did promise, because we got good results this year, he did promise to give us all an extra day off. I don't know when. Oh, stop swearing. I'll show it anyway because it's already been shown. But don't swear. Hi, Declan. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So that's sixth form college. FE college, no, you don't. You have to book your holiday. Like the last FE college I worked in, you only got 8 weeks off a year, which is still more than average. But it was only 8 weeks, and you still could only take them during out of term time. So that's like the worst deal ever. You know, you have to book holidays, but you can still only take them at certain times of year. It's only because YouTube might moan at me, but they haven't yet, to be fair, if we just keep it to a minimum. But you know what YouTube are like. Well, it's not so much YouTube, it's more the advertisers. And then, to be fair, it's not even the advertisers, it's more the people that moaned at the advertisers. So it's really the newspapers. It's actually Rupert Murdoch's fault, but you know. Although, to be fair, I don't actually think it was Rupert Murdoch's papers that moaned. Someone else. But Uldir, which bosses were particularly tough then if you've just tried Uldir? I'm going to guess, well, I'm going to guess right from the start. I can see Talok being troublesome for an unprepared or uncoordinated group. No, it wasn't actually the Daily Mail. No, that would be a Murdoch one, wouldn't it? I think it might have been... What was it? It might have even been The Guardian, which is normally... I don't want to cast aspersions, though, because it may not have been. There was one paper in the UK that started it all off, and then another UK in the US that just... Which... I don't know whether it was the Washington Post or something, but I can't remember. You were told you're only allowed to swear when you're hurt. Oh, I was told never to swear. Actually, the most sensible thing I was ever taught about swearing when I was growing up was by my judo teacher, who said that the problem with casual swearing was that the problem with casual swearing is you've got no way of expressing anger without actually getting angry, which is true. It's like, let's say you're doing something to piss someone off and they swear at you. If they swear anyway, then you don't notice. There's no signs there really to pick up on. So they end up punching you because you piss them off that much. Whereas if there's someone who doesn't normally swear and you're doing something and they swear, it's like, ooh, they've just sworn. Have I said something wrong? And then you've got your chance to rein it back a bit because you realise you've maybe, you know, put your foot in it, which is a fair enough comment. You don't think the Mail is a... well, it sounds very much like it. I don't know. They tend to... Well, it very much tends to follow the editorial of his other productions if it's not his then. Preach said Uldir is stupidly easy. Really? Because I don't think it is. I mean, there's two things. First of all, it's not as easy, and it is absolutely not as easy as Emerald Nightmare. There's no question about that. But you still have to remember, in old money, it's not a tier raid. It's like that first raid. It's like the Emerald Nightmare, only it is not easier than Emerald. It's much harder than Emerald Nightmare. And or like what was it, High Mall, something like that. I don't use casual swearing much. I mutter a bit. I never swear in front of students. When I started teaching, I was actually quite worried because the most sweary I've ever been was when I was at university, because I was constantly surrounded by people who swore so much they used to punctuate their own speech with the F word. And I got in, you know, monkey see, monkey do, and I got into the same habit. And then I went to the school I was going to be doing my placement at, and I thought, oh my God, I'm bound to just let one slip out. This will be awful. I was so worried about it. But somehow there's like a switch just went off in me, and I just turned into like polite mode when I was in the school in front of the kids. And it's happened ever since. I've you know, I've never swore. Well, I once swore in front of a student, But to be fair, it was a word that I didn't really consider swearing. So it wasn't like slipped out. It was just I deliberately used the word. I just didn't realise it was a bit naughty. There you go. He never says such. I wouldn't have thought he would, because it's not, you know. I don't know where Preach is raiding now, or even if he is raiding. I don't know. Sorry. It's quite a long time since I used to watch his videos regularly, so I don't actually know what he's up to. I don't get time for anything these days. This is the thing. I don't get time to actually watch that many YouTube videos. And I don't just watch World of Warcraft ones either. Called it janky. What the hell's janky supposed to mean? It concerned how they can dumb it. You can easily dumb it down for LFR. Every single one of those bosses can easily be dumbed down for LFR. All you have to do on LFR for like Talok, not have the lasers on the lift, which actually might not even be there for normal, so that should be easy. And have the shitty puddles not affect as many people and not do as much damage. And also, if you get in the way of the boss doing his charge, it doesn't one-shot you. That's how you do that boss in LFR. On Mother, not cause damage when you go through the partition. That would be one decent change, because there's bound to be a situation where people have to, because it's not going to be coordinated. You can only have the damage when you go through if you're going to coordinate it. Janky, erratic and uneven. No. Well, that wasn't my experience of testing anyway. I mean, there's a couple of bosses I didn't like, but that's not the same thing. Azerite item boosting have a place in a subscription-based game. Hang on. Do you think that the World Quest mechanic and the endless Azerite item boosting have a place in a subscription-based game? I think it's because it's a subscription-based game that exists. Really, if I'm honest. I think it's because it's subscription-based. Because it's subscription-based, they need people to be playing quite regularly. Whereas in games that aren't subscription-based, you know, I think there's probably more of a case of people not playing for a few months, but then when they do come back, they probably spend a bit of money to make up for it. So you're on the second to last boss. What? Mithrax. I quite liked Mithrax when we were testing that. I quite like that boss. It's a bit annoying that you have to do the drop in and straight in thing. You know, I think that's, again, I don't, you know, it's just a little gimmick I'm not keen on. But not as bad as the netball gimmick on Gahoon. But I quite liked Mithrax as a boss. But again, just from a coordination point of view, yeah, I can see that being an issue, because if people don't spread out properly, you're going to get loads of people stunned in those things, aren't you? And if you have people eating all the Pac-Man pills, then you don't leave enough for the bosses, the tanks and stuff like that either. There's all sorts of things on Mithrax I think that could probably cause trouble. I mean, I think for LFR, it's so pointless. The best thing for LFR is just to make all the mechanics worthless. And if people want to follow the proper tactics, then do so. But if you don't, it doesn't matter. You know, I really don't see why they feel the need to make LFR wipeable. It's not proper raiding. And it's relatively straightforward to get into proper raiding. So I'm not arguing for the removal of LFR, but I really don't see why they would make it a frustrating process. On some, I would just make it. If you are relying upon there being a significant number of raiders who have boss mods, because none of them have any brains, even the raiders that go in a lot of the time, you'll have people. I mean, when you see comments like, how can you not know about the mechanic? It comes up on your boss mods. completely missing the point that people for whom LFR is designed don't have add-ons at all, and why should they? So the fact that the game, the LFR could actually be challenging without those things and without knowing what the bosses do seems a bit silly. It's not for progress. You don't do progress with a group that you don't know and that you're not invested with. A group that you've just been lumped together without so much as a hello. You don't progress with them. Blizzard should just make LFR that... Oh dear. You do the mechanics, you get higher item level gear. No, you see, the problem with that is that some mechanics you only need a couple of people to do. If people beat you to it, then you're rewarding them when you'd have been perfectly happy to do it yourself. And you might do better in some other way. No, there's no point in rewarding in LFR at all. I don't... I don't know. I don't really know. I just feel that LFR should be there, but done very differently. Legion LFR difficulty was fine. I'm not so... Mostly, yes. Mostly. But... Kill Jaden for the first couple of weeks was not. Mostly because if the transition... With the DPS was often such that the transition into the Illidan phase happened with ads up. That was basically a wipe at that point. And it was never coordinated. It was just that sometimes, after a while, people's gear got good enough that you used to beat those ads. So you got the transition without those ads, in which case it was fine. So there was always the odd little boss. And what was another boss that caused trouble? Coven. Coven on LFR. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. All the way up to the end. All the way up to the end. Because I even did a last day LFR on one of the characters I'd just created. Just, you know, to get some gear. But it was pointless in the end. I should have just got crafted gear with them. There were a few other bosses as well that were tricky in LFR. You started WoW in Wrath. Raiding back then was a question of commitment to the game. See, I didn't raid a lot of Wrath. I was a raider, and quite a high-level raider, and did the first tier and was so appalled by it, I quit the game. I never came back to proper raiding until I ended Cataclysm. The thing is, though, I don't think LFR was introduced and therefore people got more entitled. I think LFR was a response to what people were demanding, which was, you know, it goes back to this argument of I pay my subscription, I should have access to the same content as everyone else. And instead of the reply being, you have got access to the same content as everyone else, you're just not accessing it, the response was, oh yeah, we'll give you a piece of piss version. But it's in now, and the thing is, it serves, whether it's right or wrong that they did it, it's impossible to say without going to an alternate universe where they didn't do it and seeing the consequences. But right or wrong, they did do it. It's a bit like flying. The genie's out of the bottle. It's in the game, and it serves a significant amount of the player base. So they can't really get rid of it now. You never really like watching videos and reading guides for boss fights. Well, there's no such thing as going in and learning on the fly other than for the very top guilds, because there will always be someone in your group who has. So if you're in a serious guild, all you're doing is really putting more work onto other people. And if you're in a more casual guild, well, that's fine. Or a casual raid group. But you're still not really going to be learning it on the fly because there'll be other people there who have read about it. Duramu in Throne of Thunder in LFR. Yeah. Or Elegant when the platform disappeared. That's good for a laugh. Coven LFR, half the raid down from the lightning. Yeah, the lightning was the worst part of it. The lightning should never, ever have been in on LFR. That is not an LFR mechanic. There is zero way that you can know about that without add-ons. Really. Because when you get the notification for it effectively, the call, you haven't got enough time to properly, especially an uncoordinated LFR group. The lightning was not an LFR mechanic and should never have been in. Have I expressed my opinion on Azerite gear and traits tonight? Not really. I've talked a bit about them, but I haven't really. Well, what false promises? It depends what their false promises were. All I took Azerite gear to be was a replacement for artifact traits, which as far as I'm concerned it is. It's basically, it's something to feed artifact power. They want, the reason why artifact traits existed and the reason why Azerite traits exist now is not because they're cool, it's because artifact power serves their purpose, which is a motivator to keep doing content and therefore not unsubscribe. That's how I see it. So Azerite traits is what you do with your artifact power. That's all I've ever considered it to be. Something that replaced the artifact trait, like the artifact weapon traits. We now have artifact, well, effectively gear traits. Not the gear itself is an artifact. You were under the impression that leveling gear had different traits. Oh, well, so did I early on. But then the problem was, by the time it emerged that they were basically going to have the same traits, I couldn't actually remember if Blizzard had said that or that was just an impression I got. But yeah, I certainly at one point had the impression that it would be different traits for leveling stuff compared to the stuff you'd get in dungeons. And I hoped, but didn't necessarily know, that raids would give different traits still. They have catch-up mechanics that makes the farming trivial as expansion moves on. Well, only as trivial as it was in Legion. I mean, the people who farm it a lot are still going to be ahead of those who don't. The whole point of the catch-up mechanics is just to stop them getting silly ahead. You think Legion did it better? I don't know. I mean, it depends on personal preference, really. I mean, the thing with Legion was you never went backwards with Legion. It had that aspect to it. Whereas with Azerite gear, you can go backwards. And this is why Hakili's idea for it, which I'd love to do a video on, but there's two reasons why I sort of have hesitated. One is that it's not my idea, it's someone else's, even though I'll give them credit, obviously. And two, loads of people have been doing videos on Azerite gear, and I would just feel that it just looks like I'm getting in on that act, and I'm just thinking, let's leave it now. Weren't we told that sets of gear with different traits would be needed? Yes, we were. Well, technically, it's not untrue. Like, if you want to go into a dungeon one day as a tank and then the next day as a healer, it's so true. I mean, the end result is still the same. We still want to keep multiple pieces of Azerite gear. But rather than... I think some of the traits are still going to be better in some situations than others. Like Dagger in the Back, for example. Awesome trait, does loads of damage if you're behind it. So that's an example of something like you need that piece of gear on a raid boss where you can be behind it. Not all raid bosses can you be behind it at all times. Whereas where there's more ads and stuff, especially in a dungeon where there's a lot of movement and ads, you can't always be behind your target. So for something like that, Dagger in the Back trait is actually a load of shit. So I think there's still cause for that, for taking multiple. But I don't see having multiple sets as being a good thing anyway. And that's coming from me, who half my bag is gear. People keep telling me to tidy my bag. I did tidy my bags up, actually, yesterday. People still weren't happy. You know, I've got like 5 full rows clear now in my bag. 2/3 of my bags are now free. That's unprecedented. You find the loot systems make you indifferent to the loot these days. You can't quite articulate why yet. Well, it's quite easy why. If you go all the way back to vanilla without trying to get all misty-eyed again, if you go all the way back to vanilla, you know, when you got an upgrade, it was usually a pretty hefty upgrade. and you didn't get them very often. It's like raiding vanilla. A boss would drop typically 2 or 3 pieces of gear. Molten Core, go all the way back to Molten Core. 2 or 3 pieces of gear for 40 people. Now, in a Mythic raid, it will drop about, okay, personal loot now, but I still think it'll work out about the same, about 5 pieces of gear for 20 people. So, the rate, and plus there's other ways of getting gear at the same quality, which there wasn't back then. You know, Molten Core gave way better gear than any other form of content when that was new. And then Blackwing Lair was better still, and AQ40 better still, Nax better still. Whereas now, you not only get more pieces of gear from raiding, you've got your seals, your reroll tokens to give you even more. You've got your mythic cash to give you even more. You have had in the past the missions every couple of weeks to give you another piece. You know, so... How many bosses can you kill in Uldir with 340? It depends on what item level everyone else is at. And more than the item level, really, it'll be how people know. Can people deal with mechanics? Because, for example, you know, there's so many bosses where people can just screw everyone else over by dropping something in the wrong place. Like Talok, the stuff to drop. If you drop it in the wrong place, you screw everyone over. Vectus, isn't it? No, not Vectus. Not Vectus. Although Vectus does matter as well, where you place things. I was thinking of the bug monster, Herald of Unzoth. There's something there that you have to drop as far away as possible, little cloud things. If you drop that in the raid, you're basically going to wipe everyone. One person can wipe everyone on that bug boss. So, it really just depends on your group. Is it a good idea, item set bonuses like the trinket and the ring in Waycrest to keep them in the future? I always keep anything that might be useful until its item level is so low that it couldn't possibly be useful. I would always keep it. Wasn't long ago Melee had to be behind the boss for... Well, yes. It was parries really rather than hits, because you got enough hit rate to make sure it couldn't dodge you. It was really more about parrying. But yeah. But then they got rid of expertise and that. But it's much less. Well, that's why you still want to stay behind. But it's not like at a time where you could reduce it. You can't do anything about it now, so you're just getting parried at whatever rate. I mean, there was a time when poor old rogues with backstab actually had to be behind it. So on a boss like Ultraxian, you weren't using it. I think Feral Druids had a similar thing, didn't they? With an ability that could only be used when you were behind it. But I mean, that's the thing. There is a trait which, if you're behind your target, is awesome. And if you're not, is weak. So you just have to judge whether you can be behind it or not. There was, so I'm talking of parry haste, because in Wrath, in early Wrath, when Death Knights were still very much in development, you know, they were not at all ready for the opening of Wrath. And at the time, for some reason, Blood was seen as the DPS spec. And Frost, dual-wielding Frost, was seen as the tank spec. It was not a good tank spec, obviously. I used to think to myself, how awful is that? Because you're going to get parried all over the place. Without your 25% expertise or whatever it was needed to cut that out completely. It was not, and do you know why? Because at because that was the only tier in Wrath that I raided properly, like seriously. The thing is, there was a Fury Warrior in the guild who used to keep having DPS races with me. So it was always like pretty close. But he's the one who always used to get Hysteria because all his damage was physical. So you know, when he slightly beat me on DPS, I used to say, well, that's because you're getting bloody hysteria. I'm not getting anything. Disgraceful. But no, it was a mess. It was a mess. Because it changed quite a lot during the beta as well, because I got in fairly early beta on Wrath. And the massive changes that happened during beta. But then it was just equally massive changes through the expansion itself. Yeah, well, I don't know about Ret Paladins in Wrath because I didn't really raid as it. Everyone always said it was a goal. See, this is the thing. Ret Paladins here, you should take heart from the fact that I've stopped Mythic raiding. Because the last time I stopped serious raiding was the golden age of Ret Paladins. Because I stopped raiding after second version of Nax. Because it was so appalling. I thought, I'm not playing the game if this is what it's going to be like. I didn't know that the next tier was going to be awesome. I didn't know Ulduar was going to be awesome. I just thought that, oh, raiding's gone to shit. So I stopped raiding. So maybe the same thing will happen. Maybe Ret Paladins will be awesome again because I've stopped raiding. Because Blizzard do like to troll me. Frost Tank did have like all of them had traits that helped with tanking, and all of them had traits that helped with DPS. It was all really weird and confused. And what was even more confused was that some people took the traits that helped with tanking when they were DPS. People really didn't know whether. The only reason I think we took them was because of their grips on Malygos, as far as I can tell. And like I said, I stopped raiding by the time we got to Ulduar. Well, I was kicking myself when I found out Ulduar was really good. Not so much how Rets turned out, because I was, you know... I mean, TBC was the biggest struggle there ever was. There could never be an expansion where you had to struggle as much as a Ret there. And I managed, so it was alright. But I mean, the thing is, like I've said this before, you know, Wrath came out, I got to level cap. In our guild, we then raided Nax, cleared it all. Then we raided Obsidian Sanctum, cleared it all. Then we raided Malygos, killed it. I say cleared it all, Obsidian Sanctum, there's only one boss in that as well. And that was it. And I thought, okay, so after I've leveled up, which, okay, took about a week for me to level up, fit it around work. But in the second week of the expansion, I've killed all the raid bosses. What do I do now? Oh, we do achievements. Oh, that'll be fun. So that was it. And I thought that was the pattern. I didn't realise, and I still to this day do not understand why Tier 7 was like it is, given that Tier 8, Ulduar, was done so well. I don't know what happened with Tier 7. Why it was so crap. Because it's not even like they had to come up with a new raid. They basically ripped off a raid they'd already done. And I don't even know what they did to it. They abused the hell out of it. And turned up something. And it's like, you know, you go back to that earlier statement. You said there was no such thing as Elefar in Wrath of the Lich King. Yes, there was. It was called Naxxramas. It was appalling. It was so bad that when we killed Malygos, which was the hardest raid boss in the game at the time, I was still skilling up my polearm skill because I'd just been to a dungeon and got a blue quality polearm. So, you know, I still couldn't hit it all the time. It didn't matter. It was so easy. Oh, dear. So, yeah, so I quit. I said I'm not playing. Because I thought that was the pattern now. And I was just thinking, oh, it's got too casual. We're just going to do the raid in 1 week and then you're just doing achievements after it. Oh, that's rubbish. Not doing that. Tier 7 probably wasn't supposed to happen since Ulduar wasn't ready. Maybe, I don't know. It's possible. See, at the time, you see, even though I was in the beta, I didn't really, at the time, used to do a lot of reading elsewhere and finding things out. So I had no idea what Blizzard was saying about it at the time. So it may be that. Maybe it was that Ulduar was supposed to be there and wasn't. But I would be surprised at that because there was Nax, there was Ulduar. Maybe, I don't know. Then you had that Colosseum thing, didn't you? And then you had ICC. I mean, that was only 4 tiers. There were, you know, and 4 tiers was the pattern at the time. Oh, well, people always try and compare things to Warcraft 3. The thing is, though, you can't... It's difficult to compare because Warcraft 3 has a linear narrative in a way that doesn't really work for an MMO. You know, as linear as people will say World of Warcraft is. You know, it's not... It doesn't have that linear narrative where it takes you through things because you can play from different points of view in World of Warcraft. Whereas in Warcraft 3, you didn't. You know, you played this campaign as Thrall or a Horde or something like that. This campaign as Night Elves, this campaign as this campaign as that. Arthur's kept popping up here and there. Well, I mean, he was supposed to be the one that was ever present, wasn't he? You got a 385 weapon from your chest today. Well, let's see if you get to keep it. I mean, a 385, I suppose, should be okay. Why is the WoW token so cheap? I don't know. I really don't know. Unless it's just that lots of people have been buying them in order to get the gold, to buy the expensive stuff at the start of the expansion. But if that's not the case... If it's the case that the demand has gone down, I don't know. Is there a way to sim potions on raid bots? Yeah, I'm sure there is. Let me just quickly go onto it. So, if you go down at the bottom and it says simulation options, if you click that, then it opens up a load of different options, and one of them is potion. So there's a drop-down menu, and the default is let SimC decide, or you can click down your drop-down menu and pick whichever one you want, including no potion at all. So it's sort of hidden. All the advanced options are sort of hidden. If you go down, you just click the ticky box where it says simulation options, and it gives you quite a lot of things you can modify. And it's worth remembering as well that all the raid buffs are automatically on there, but you can disable some of them for if you want to sim for, let's say, dungeons, Hectic Adcleave or something. You like that one dungeon where you run from Arthur's? That was... oh no, I can't remember what it's called. But I know which one you mean. Oh, oh, no, he was a threat. If you ran up to him and tried to hit him, he would be a threat. But he was quite slow. I don't know why he was supposed to be so slow. No, not Culling of Stratho. It was one of the ones that came later in the expansion. Because the thing is, even though I quit the game, what happened was, later on, my graphics card melted, and then I couldn't play any other game other than WoW, so I just came back to World of Warcraft. Just casually, though. I only played it casually. Didn't do it seriously. Halls of Reflection. There you go. Well done. Thank you. Yeah, well, I like to think the reason he didn't just death grip us was because he was actually a little bit nervous about Jaina / Sylvanas. Yes, Jaina puts up an ice wall. Was it? I can't remember now. All I remember is a load of geists and abominations and stuff used to run at you and you had to kill them. That's pretty much all I remember. And then at some point at the end, a skyship comes up and causes a rockfall to stop him pursuing you, and you'll get on it, loot it, and go away. How does a frost boss like Arthas get stopped by a frost wall? I'm not quite sure what his frost magic skills are, to be fair. I mean, he clearly has some, but I'm not sure quite what they're up to. I mean, being able to make a frost wall doesn't necessarily mean you can destroy them very easily, I suppose. Took Jaina a while. Potentially what you really want in that situation is a fire mage. For someone who doesn't like the cold, he was sat on an icy throne for like 5 years. Which maybe that's why he walks so slowly, because he's got hemorrhoids. Yeah, maybe that was it. Sat on a frozen throne for 5 years. I think we've cracked it. Using the dungeon finder, you would see a heal jump in. What do you mean a heal jump in? What, didn't healers like it? I was alright healing it. If I had to. As long as you had people... I mean, I know you could get mugged if people didn't control the ads properly, but... You know, that hurt everyone then. They'd soon learn. Does Jaina's brother have a part to play in BFA? I don't think he's going to have a romance with Anduin. But I'm quite sure he would have a role to play, because they have just summoned him for no good reason. Like I said last week, didn't I? You know, Jaina did not need to summon the fleet to chase off Ashvane. She's shown herself to be perfectly powerful enough to single-handedly have defeated Ashvane's navy. So the fact that she's summoned him back means that he must have some role to play. Did I get into Dragon Soul? Yes. Yeah. That's where I came back and started raiding again. I say properly. It was still doing it at the heroic level, which is what we would now call mythic. So yes, I did progress Dragon Soul. No, Jaina's brother is canon. He was in Warcraft 2. In fact, I'm pretty sure, but I could be wrong on this point, I'm pretty sure that in Warcraft 2, he was supposed to have taken off as the Lord High Admiral when Daelin was killed, rather than Catherine. So I was a little surprised that they retconned it to Catherine, actually. She had a couple of brothers, though, didn't she? Am I mixing up brothers? I'm sure she had a couple. But, you know, it was a long time ago. And I didn't play Warcraft 2 through a lot of times because I didn't like it. But like I said last week, she had no need to call the fleet. What do you mean he's not canon? He was in the bloody game. How did I feel about the raid? Well, you've got to remember that it was the first proper progress raid I'd done since Sunwell Plateau. Because I don't count Nax, Obsidian Sanctum and Malagos as being proper because we didn't progress them, we just turned up and killed them. You know, we never came back the next night, if you see what I mean. So there was no progress for those. So the last raid I'd progressed was Sunwell Plateau. So even though I was in a guild that took a long time to kill it on that heroic level, it was still quite enjoyable just because I was back into raiding again. Gale power the retcon? Well, possibly. Okay. Well, he was... What? But how... No. But he is canon because he's in the game. How can he not be canon? He was in Warcraft 2, and then we never had any Kulturas lore until now, and he's still in the game, just in a different role. So I don't understand why a dev would say he's not canon when he's in World of Warcraft and he's in Warcraft 2. Oh, Tol Barad. Oh, well, I don't remember that. Sorry then. I don't remember that. Because that was... I'd quit the game then. Ian said he's not. What does he know? A bit like Game of Thrones with WoW when they left the narrative of the prior Warcraft games and had to make a main story themselves, not the same quality. Alright. Okay. If you had it in Kata. Well, what happened in Kata? Because obviously I didn't play properly Kata. Yeah, I can understand them retconning it. I don't like it, but I understand that they do that. But what I'm trying to say is, he was canon in Warcraft 2. So if they've retconned him out of being canon, okay, fine. But he's in the game now. He's there. He's in a cinematic. How can he still not be canon when he's been in a cinematic this month? Last month even. Was Nax more of a letdown since I read the original? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the worst part of the Mark II Nax was you get all these... Because people already will say something like, you know, oh, vanilla was so easy, you know, blah, blah, blah. Because most of those people only did Molten Core, and Molten Core was easy. Whereas there was genuinely challenging mechanics in both, especially AQ40 and Nax. Like, even by today's standards. And what made them, in many ways, more challenging is you didn't have as many boss mods as you do now. So, a lot of it was... Although you had more people. So, to be fair, one thing you had in your favour is you had more people and therefore more expendability. But, this, and so people would just say, they would do Naxxramas version 2 really easily and go, oh, you're just making it up, look how easy it is. But not only was it massively undertuned compared to the first, but the whole mechanics just taken out. Massively, just completely taken out. Like, for example, the classic case is, well, Lower Thebes is a really good case, but just before Lower Theb, between Hagen and Lower Theb, you've got that room with the ice stalks and the maggots, which just looks like a room of trash. But that was part of the encounter in the original Nax. The only good part about the second version of Nax, the only good part, was that you could still make Kel'Thuzad angry by killing Mr. Bigglesworth, which I always used to do. I always used to do that in the original version of Nax as well. I would race to be the first one into the raid so that I could kill Mr. Bigglesworth. And then all the cat lovers in the raid would hate me for the rest of the night. You can't wait until they bring Brock Cigar back. Oh my god. Dear me. But anyway, we have last question then before we finish, because we're 15 minutes over already. Can you suggest a YouTube creator that does podcast lore, Lord of the Rings lore videos? You can suggest whatever you wish. Very few guilds completed Nax in vanilla. I think that's true. None of them did on my realm. The problem is we should have done, but as soon as they announced the release date for TBC, my guild stopped raiding. So that was 2 months where we could have polished it off, and we didn't. Lazy bastards. because they kept saying, oh, I'm only going to be giving up my raid epics for like green quality quest items. I'm like, so what? We didn't anyway. It was like I was almost level capped before I was replacing most of my stuff. I remember the very first item I replaced was a wrist. The second item I replaced was the weapon with Terrox Quill, which is like level 66. Don't know how I remember that. Most of it I didn't replace until I got to level cap. Remember the rumours of activating hard mode if you killed Kel'Thuz's pet? No. You see, the thing is, rumours like that probably wouldn't have got to me because I didn't do a lot of reading stuff up on forums and things like that. You know, I didn't very much... So, I've never heard that, and I probably wouldn't have done. So... Arakir, Galudarith, Gordon Bennett. They've made it easy to remember, haven't they? Arakir, Galudarithon. Right, maybe. But anyway, I'm going to disappear off now. Yes, thank you very much for coming on, everyone. I will be streaming tomorrow, but I'm not sure what. I might actually stream Lord of the Rings tomorrow. Did I make a target cat macro for it? No. Oh, no. You've got to stalk your prey. You don't just target it like that. You know, find it first. Holy shock. Job done. Job done. But anyway, yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. I will see you later, and have a good night.